So you're gonna show where you stretch all those people? So you're gonna show us the dungeon?
I might try to show a move or two.
Yeah. I'll take some moves, sir.
Do you feel that?
Oh yes, sir. I don't feel my arms, sir. I can feel it.
Can you feel that, sir?
Oh yes, sir.
Red,
oh yeah,
rosy.
Yes, sir.
And by taking this arm back here,
No.
you just ease his hand in the position here. I got the power here to...
Stop it, sir. Stop.
You're listening to Hart Beat Radio.
And good afternoon to the great wrestling fans of Heartbeat Radio. We're going to be having a guest come on shortly who is probably the most requested guest we've had in the last couple of years. Harry Smith, the son of British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith. I'll bring on Bruce Hart, our host. But first of all, I'd like to introduce our co-host who did a documentary with Diana down at Cauliflower Alley Club from Portland Wrestling, Mr. Matt Merz. Welcome, Matt, to Heartbeat Radio.
Always a pleasure to be here, Bob.
Just before we bring Harry on, I just got a quick caller here from area code 813. It looks like Tampa, Florida. Who are we talking to from Tampa, Florida? Welcome to Heartbeat Radio.
Hi, this is Ellie calling. Just wanted to say hi and just let you know that I miss you all. But I just wanted to mostly just listen.
Please give our love to Jim.
Oh, thanks. I will.
Last time we chatted, Jim sounded so much better. I was quite impressed. He sounded 100%. So.
Oh yeah, good. He's doing pretty good these days. A lot better. He's just had a few little blips on the radar.
We just had Ellie Neidhart. That's the wife of the great Jim Neidhart and the mother of Natalya. To all our great fans in Heartbeat Radio, one of the most requested guests in the history of Heartbeat Radio. Young man, I met him. I've known him all my life. A great kid, a wonderful wrestler, and a true friend. And without any further ado, welcome to Heartbeat Radio. Finally got you on the show, Harry Smith. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction, Bob. I'm glad to be on the show. And
how's Japan been, Harry? Has that been going well for you?
Good. Yeah, it's been very good.
Any of my old cronies still over there, old Yamada or Hossie or
yeah,
Hashimoto's dead, isn't he?
He passed away, unfortunately. But we're in Noah right now. We're sort of being we're still under New Japan contracts, but we're in Noah. They've been working with Noah a lot. But in New Japan, I know Kichi Yamada is still around. Hase is not, but he comes to show once in a blue moon, and he's in the what is he? He's a senator. That's right, a senator.
Yeah.
He's high up in the physical education of the national physical education system of Japan. So he's the head of all the high schools and universities and stuff like that for amateur wrestling. So he's been pretty successful. And Junji Hirata, he's still sort of there. He not in any kind of a significant role or anything, but Sakaguchi's still there. Not in any significant role, but he comes to shows.
This old
sort of figurehead.
Yeah, figurehead. That's the way to put it.
Sakaguchi and does Inoki even live in Japan anymore? Is he around anymore?
I don't know. I think he lives in New York or something like that. But he's totally out of New Japan. I think he's pretty far out of touch with things as far as what.
Is New Japan merging with Noah then, Harry?
Yeah, that's pretty much been it.
Is Vince doing much interaction with them, or is that just accidental? You see Nakamura and a few of them, or is there any actual?
No, they weren't really like New. I don't think New Japan was I don't think they were really that happy about things the way that they went, because and it's sort of their fault because they're signing guys to contracts more often now, like because you can sign guys tour to tour, but then all of a sudden they get an offer and then they take off. But The one guy, Giant Bernard, that works in the WWE under the training system there or whatever, he was a big star for New Japan for quite a few years, and he kept in pretty good rapport with the guys. And then when he I think, approached Hunter about it, and not that they stole them necessarily from New Japan, but I don't know what the situation is there, but it's a little bit dirty.
I've said it for years that best thing Vince and them could be doing is just, they don't need to be, even perceived to be associated with anybody, but it would be good for Vince to be letting some of the, I see too many guys that either get stale with Vince or haven't got enough experience, and they try to push them, and then they end up getting jobbed out after all like that. But
some
I saw like old Luke Gallows,
and
the Luke Gallows benefited a lot from going to Japan, and he's kind of a lot better now than when he was doing that straight edge society and all that other bullshit.
Agree.
He actually looks like a decent worker now, but before they made kind of a fool of him when he was looking like he was half retarded or something like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
But there's a bunch of guys in there right now that would probably benefit. They'd be better off sending them, to Japan or someplace and bring them back a year from now, and they might learn how to work or something. But
I think so too. Sometimes in the company, what they do is they get kind of, they're not really. How should I say it? They're not like dedicated. I say to the talent sometimes.
No,
pushing them. They'll try for a week and then they
from NXT to me that's ass backwards anyway. Going from NXT to superstardom, it's almost like the best thing they could do is take any of those guys that are half decent in NXT and send them someplace for about a year or two, and then bring them back, and they might actually hit the ground running.
And then they try stuff for a week or two, and then they say, well, it didn't work. But if they really want to get something to work, they will try their hardest. And then sometimes they use up guys and they waste them, and then they're good for fucking nobody after. And then they have to kind of build up from the bottom again. So they're not good with that.
How's old Josh Barnett doing? Is he doing any?
I saw him over the summer, and I trained in Los Angeles with him, and he helped get me ready for the North American Grappling Association. They had a big tournament, submission grappling tournament in Las Vegas the same day.
You won that, didn't you, Harry?
Yeah, an expert division.
Yeah, that's good.
Heavyweight. Yeah, I have my championship belt here, and he helped me with it, and I definitely want to spend more time out there in training with Josh. He's got a world of knowledge for shooting for sure, but for pro wrestling too. A lot of the stuff he says makes.
How old's Josh now? Must be in his mid-40s or something like that.
37 maybe.
38, I think. Yeah, something like that. So he's still young enough that he might be able to. I think he wouldn't. I don't know. He might waste his time if he worked for Vince. They might not know what to do with him, but.
I would think he'd be a great, more of a coach type thing where I think they need to go back to a more legitimate style of pro wrestling, and.
Yeah, and like what Josh says, he always says is that you got to think, shoot, but work. That's the simplest way to do it.
I'd rather see more guys.
That's a good way of putting it.
Like that instead of Heath Slaters and The Miz and some of those guys that look like they don't know a wrist lock from a wristwatch, No, it's too many guys.
And the only thing that they are is exactly as sports entertainers, not wrestlers.
Yeah, and I think they need to go back to the basics. I think they've gone about as far as they can in the entertainment end of it, and they need to. I think they even know that might serve the purpose of looking like a shoot, which is, what it used to be all about. They've almost forgotten that this one's for real or this one's a shoot.
You're right, because they want to get suspended in their, beliefs.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Hopefully there'll be some kind of more return back to wrestling and less to entertainment. But they always talk about that, but it's easier said than done, you know.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the origins of your career. From what I understand, you started right at the turn of the century in like 1999 when you were, maybe, 15 or 16 years old. Is that true?
Yeah, I was, at that point, I think I was more like 13, 14, 99. So, yeah, that was when Stampede resurrected on TV.
Okay. And was that and what about the Mat Rats promotion that I've kind of heard Teddy talk about a little bit?
Mat Rats was an idea that came around from a guy named Graham Owen, who was doing the TV pilots for Stampede Wrestling at the time. Mm-hmm. And he had an idea for some, not kids wrestling, but for people like young people under the age of 21. But as soon as you turn over 21, you're disqualified, sort of. You can't compete anymore. But it was a good idea and it was a good concept. Eric Bischoff was, in fact, involved with it, and Jason Hervey and some investors. But what exactly went wrong there, I can't really 100% tell you. But, I mean, they had a lot of good talent, like myself and T.J. Wilson, Teddy Hart at the time. Rene Dupree, he came in for a show, the last big pilot that they tried to do, and it was an interesting concept. It didn't work. I'm not the one to point the finger at what went wrong, but that's the way it is. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of people know about it. Like, I don't even think you can find much of it on YouTube or anything. I could be wrong, but I do a random search every now and again.
I know you held a Stampede International Tag Gold there in 2004, but what I kind of find interesting is you actually came to the Pacific Northwest for a while and were the Pinnacle Heavyweight Champion back when like TJ, I think Jack Evans was here at that time, Davey Richards, a guy named Dave Hollenbeck, who's kind of a local guy around here. How did you get involved in the Northwest? Was that TJ that brought you down here?
No, we both came at the same time. So basically, it was a guy named Cecil Reed who had a promotion there called Pinnacle, and he was running out of this Seattle-Tacoma area, and it was nice, man. You know what? I have to say that outside of Stampede Wrestling, Pinnacle Wrestling was some of my funnest independent shows that I had done. Because the thing was that it wasn't really far from Calgary. It was like a 1-hour flight. And then I liked the atmosphere of the place. Like, some of the wrestlers, don't get me wrong, weren't exactly qualified. But they all seemed like for the most part, everybody wanted to improve and get better. So that's good. Like, they didn't think that they knew what they were doing, but they were rotten. They had good attitudes. And, man, I like Seattle. I'm kind of funny. I like weird stuff like Jack in the Box burgers and some of the restaurants in the area. It's been to Bruce Lee's gravesite down there. Yeah. So, and that was the first time I had met Josh Barnett was there. We were kind of working together in New Japan at the same time, but they had kind of stopped bringing him on tour, but we're keeping him like on the payroll, whatever he was getting. I was going over a little bit. I had a tour or two. TJ had gone over kind of sporadically because at that point, New Japan, their business was really shaky. It was up and down. And I had met Josh, and it was so funny. We were on the show together. Me, Jack, TJ, and Jack goes, man, Josh Barnett, he's downstairs. He's watching the show live. I knew he lived in the city. And I said, oh, really? Kind of peeked, and I saw him like kind of staring and sitting in the crowd. And then, I met Josh that first time, and then he invited me to come train whenever I would come to Seattle. I came a couple more times, and then Cecil kind of gave me and TJ control, which was a good thing. It was a smart idea because we were the most, I would say, qualified because Davey Richards had kind of stopped doing shows there. I don't know if he was busy or what, and Dave Hollenbeck was another guy who was sort of more experienced, but a lot of the guys just weren't, and so I was the champion, and then I got signed to WWE in my last show. Actually, my very last Pinnacle show, I dropped the title to TJ, and it was funny. My WWE, my first loop of house shows was the next week, and it was in Seattle also. Oh, so so it was kind of funny. After the show, we would stay at Jack Evans' dad's house, and then we would watch whatever was going on, if it was Ring of Honor DVDs or, you know, whatever the new thing was. Stay up till 4 a.m, you know, watching.
Did you, Harry, ever hook up with old Gene LeBell? The old.
I haven't. You know, I did go to his school one time, and his protege Gokor, he was running the class.
Yeah, he's
it was a huge class. He was really. Yeah, you know what? That's one of the things to meet him.
He told me he was one of the main first trainers of Bruce Lee.
I heard that, and I heard, according to Billy Robinson, that Gene LeBell was sort of his bodyguard, and that whenever he got into trouble with things happened, that he would take care of things because Bruce was he was the movie star at the time. He couldn't afford to risk something like that.
He still always writes me, always sends me these crests, you know. I don't know, have you ever seen those things?
I haven't. I really want to meet him.
Better than one and all this stuff like that, you know. But nice,
is that
nice
true
old
that,
guy, you know.
I heard some story that Gene LeBell choked out Steven Seagal backstage in a movie set, and Steven Seagal messed his pants or something.
Oh yeah,
there's a bunch. Steven Seagal, of course, he denies it. I don't know if it's true because I've heard.
He told me Gene LeBell told me he trained Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and some other guy that was called Thunderfoot, who was a black martial arts guy or something. He's a pretty interesting old guy, old Gene. I think he's about 90 years old now. He must be around that age, you know, and he's been around.
He knew a lot of catch wrestling, too. I heard that because he was a judo guy originally. And
judo,
then I heard
Gene
that,
LeBell, yeah.
Yeah, and then I heard after he trained with Carl Gotch that he started to learn the leg submissions and a lot of the catch wrestling. And that, but Carl actually spoke highly of him, which was a surprise because he didn't, tell many people.
Yeah, he seems like a nice old guy. He lives in Sherman Oaks, California, wherever that is, somewhere. But I think he knows Josh Barnett a bit. And
yeah, he for sure. Yeah, he played a big role in Ronda Rousey's career too. I think she refers to him as an uncle.
Oh yeah,
but I really want to meet him. I you know what? I better actually get on that because who knows? He's getting up in age and.
So were you doing WWE house shows and down in Florida Championship Wrestling at the same time?
Yeah, sort of. So what happened was they were really hell bent on signing me, and that was really, it was cool, I was I think I was only 20, and they were really hell bent, and I had come across some advice and was thinking about things. And I was trying to spend more time wrestling in Japan and honing my craft and getting more experience. In fact, I think a lot better experience than signing to WWE because then you're sort of there for, a long time, or you would think anyway, or on paper you would think. So, and they offered me developmental deal a couple times, and I had at that point had turned them down. And then they offered me a contract for I don't know, they call it a booking contract, I guess. So then for the first 6 months, I was on payroll, but I was flying in and out of Calgary and doing house shows and a lot of dark matches with. I must have worked Rob Conway 100 times during that summer. And it was really, and learning from and working with Rob and working the WWE style was cool. I was learning a lot at first and getting pretty good at what they wanted. And then they just kind of stopped. And then I was sitting at home for 4 months, and I didn't know what was going on or what to do. And TJ and Natty were trying to get signed at the time, so they weren't quite signed yet. And then when they brought me down to developmental, they had stopped using me on house shows and stuff. But I was down in Florida. But So I during my whole time there, I was never actually even under developmental contract. I was under booking contract.
Not to interject, but Harry was already, in my estimation, a phenomenal worker when he went down there. He had worked out here for several years with Stampede and he was an incredible. And I still think WWE never even came close to using Harry anywhere near.
No, they dropped the ball with Harry big time.
his capability, and
he's
most
still a young man.
People have no idea, the fans, how good Harry was. Like, Harry was right up there in my estimation with Randy Orton and a few other guys at that level, and if he ever went back there, I think, second time around he should be like a major thing. But I've seen that, I don't know what predicates that. I've seen them push some second generation guys and really pay homage to their parents and all like that, but for whatever reason they never seem to do that with Harry, and I thought it was a big I almost thought it was a bit of an insult. I don't know what the hell was the Davey boy. He was a huge star down there. He wasn't just some
considering Harry's
guy
pedigree.
who had been on the roster, and there was so much potential. I think it was, in its own way, I think it was better that Harry has gone to Japan and kind of almost been away from it for a while, but I've seen a few that they pushed because of their dads, and others I see them completely, like DiBiase's kid. They didn't seem to make anything of him whatsoever, even though he had the pedigree, and others, they make out like it's a big deal. Like they pushed Randy a bit, but I don't know how that works, because there's so many second generation guys, and they give them bullshit names like Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel and other. And you don't know what Kurt Hennig's kid's way better than he's been used to. I don't know what the deal is there with him. And even with Roman Reigns, I don't know why they don't just call him, Alpha or Sika's son or whatever the hell, but I have no idea who is responsible for those.
Well, because they own the rights to the name Roman Reigns. That's why they do that.
Like,
it's just that
like the name doesn't evoke anything to me, one way or the other. It's kind of Bo Dallas. I don't know what the hell, but.
Well, I'm
anyway,
curious to ask, Harry, why did you choose to not sign a developmental deal back then?
Sure, and thank you, Bruce, for that encomium. And I tend to agree not to blow smoke up my own ass, but I think so. But the reason why I didn't sign at that time was developmental deal at that point. I don't know if they had changed it, but I think the offer was like $500 a week, and then the second was $750. And to be honest with you, to move all the way down to Louisville, Kentucky, or whatever for that was good. But I was doing almost that, kind of doing 2 or 3 tours to Japan a year and independence, and I felt like it was a way for me to grow, and guys like Chris Benoit at the time had influenced me to try and stay in Japan as long as you can, get as much more experience, and then you'll be that much better, because he goes, you just came 19 or 20, there's no real rush. So he goes, once you sign, it's not like, oh, I signed it, then I didn't really like this after a couple months, I'm going to quit and I'm going to go back to Japan. You know what I mean? The doors would be kind of closed at that point. And I like a lot of guys, like even Spanky at that time, I see that he's back there, but he originally had signed and he had high hopes and this and that, and then he quit like 6 months later, and he wasn't happy. And then they were able to let him back in, but I didn't really want to have that where you sign up and you go down and moving down all the way down there by myself pretty much. And we were it was trying to almost like sign me, and then it was like trying to sign like if the offer had been for Natty and TJ to sign developmental deals, all three of us at the same time, I probably would have been more inclined to take it. But there was at that time there just wasn't, and for whatever reason I don't know. So then that was the reason. Kind of with a little bit money because it was the same, but I just figured, that they were always going to be around, that I could try and build myself up, get experience in Japan like Chris Benoit and other guys had done, and then go there. But that was why I initially hadn't. And then when I did, I wound up going there anyway, even, so.
And you were there, and originally wasn't it yourself and Teddy and Natty? And then, of course, Teddy moved on as usual. And is that when they brought in TJ and did the Tyson Kidd thing with him?
Yeah, well, they were all under developmental at the same time, so it was kind of nice having, family members down in Florida, although Ted can be taxing at times, but I guess to put it that way. But Ted's a great, naturally talented athlete, and too bad it didn't work for him. But, and that was what they were kind of planning, and we were always trying to get all of us up at the same time as this faction. And then
it seems like Teddy kind of almost caused a false start there.
Yeah, because we had talks on the phone with, I think, Bruce Pritchard and some other writers, me, Ted, and Natty, and we were literally right about to debut on SmackDown any week, and then Ted got, he got fired and he hasn't been back, but.
And then of course you went on to be a WWE Tag Team Champion with TJ. And then found your success big time in Japan. But what happened there in WWE during your time there?
They had signed me. I was way too young. I think that they were almost kind of like, begging for me to sign. And they told me when I initially had signed, like, oh, we're going to use you next week on Raw, blah, blah, blah. I signed there and I went in the company, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think my timing has been impeccably bad with certain things. And one was just signing there in general. 2007, 2008, I think those were shitty years in WWE. I don't think that there was much good wrestling going on. That's just my personal opinion, as opposed to now where you can turn on NXT and WWE. They were going in a really weird, like, PG mode where they were obsessed with everything being PG. And not only that, and I hate to bring it up, but the whole Benoit fiasco, it kind of it killed vibes in the back, I think, for a long time. I think a lot of people were upset about it for quite a while. I think it was a bad thing. Obviously, it was a bad thing, and it was a bad thing for the company. It was a terrible time to be in the company, to be honest with you. And now, you look and. But at the same time, it was like, oh, well, why won't you sign? They want you to sign and blah, blah, blah. But had there been, because New Japan at that time, their business was really bad. And then they only started using, I think, Giant Bernard, Fergal, Prince Devitt, and maybe, I think, Machine Gun was starting to. And those were the only three foreigners, with Machine Gun living there part-time because they didn't want to pay for flights back and forth. That's how bad the business was at the time. And Noah was doing really good, and I did try with Noah at that time, and WWE was the best option. Had I gone back, it probably would have been better if I went to TNA or somewhere first, but at the same time, I thought at that time it was the right decision because there was a demand or a want for me, we have to sign this kid, and then you sign, and 5 years later you're kind of looking around going, what the hell am I still doing here? You know what I mean? And is this really the best thing for my career? Check off, no. A couple other people like Ted DiBiase Jr., who I thought was a really awesome talent, and they were really high on him. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if he made somebody angry backstage, but they just totally wasted him. And he wound up leaving on his own terms, which is good. But what makes them want to push some guys and not others and change their names around and do goofy stuff? I don't know. I can't.
I think a lot of the writers there have a problem with premature ejaculation creatively, it seems.
I think a big part of the problem is that there is so many effing writers in the first place. Like, who the hell? You only really need one or two guys. I've booked territories for years and years. You don't need 40 morons, cooks in the kitchen. That's where it all goes to shit. And
let me ask you, Harry.
Don't even have a grasp of the wrestling business either.
Out of all those writers that you worked with there, how many of them grew up watching wrestling and were involved maybe on the independent scene before they were called in to write for WWE? Any of them?
You know what? To be honest, I never really knew any of them that well, but I'm going to go out on an educated guess here and say no, that none of them did. I don't believe so. I think maybe Dave Lagana and a couple other guys that were around for quite a while, they probably did. And that's probably why they stayed around for so long. I don't know. But I mean, I could be wrong. Hey, don't get mad if wrong on that. But
I'm not going to get mad.
Seriously doubt it. A lot of them were like soap opera writers and stuff.
Oh, it's still part of their big problem. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. They got one match where they're trying to be a effing abortion comedy, or and then they're serious in the next match. Then they got Hornswoggle coming out and being spanked or something by a diva or some bullshit.
No respect for the dignity of the wrestling business either.
Yeah, and same with the announcers. They got about 6 announcers when, in the old days they only needed one. It's way too much overkill and bullshit, but that's one of their biggest problems. But
now tell me about your success there in Japan, Harry, with Lance Archer. You guys have been 2-time IWGP Tag Champs, NWA World Tag Champs, GHC Tag Champs there in Noah. Seems like that's quite a solid team you've created.
Yeah, it's been really, really awesome. Japan's a wonderful place. The people there are amazing. They really appreciate good wrestling. The wrestling style that goes on there has been more beneficial for me. That's just...
In what ways?
Hey, we're all like drops of water from the rain. Everybody's different. I find like I'm a wrestler. I know how to shoot. I just won the Naga Grappling Expert Division in August. I like to try and show that ability and capability when I go in the ring, have that a part of me.
And that should be for almost all the wrestlers, I might add,
Yeah,
That's what it's
these
all
guys,
about.
They
It's
just,
supposed to be wrestling, not horseshit, sports entertainment, or pre-orchestrated, scripted by a bunch of effing Hollywood soap opera writers and bullshit. It should be just wrestling, not whatever the hell that they all too often, allow it to degenerate into.
Yeah, and I feel that the wrestling should all be solid. It should be snug. It doesn't have to necessarily be stiff. It can be stiff, but you take a look at somebody like a Fit Finley or someone like those, like him. His technique is really excellent, and there's no holes or gaps, or you can't, you want it to be, a magician never shows how he does his tricks.
The closest thing
I
can say is AJ's pretty good, and I remember you worked with him out here on some of our shows, and
he's awesome.
He's kind of like a throwback to what it should be, but
and part of the thing is like nobody. God, I don't know who to use as an example off the top of my head, but when people they don't believe in them, they don't believe that they're going to go out there and kick somebody's ass, so they don't believe that they're going to There's no believability. And it should
the bottom line is the fans actually do want to believe if you just let them, but you're
whether you have
the
a
flag
six-pack or you're a blonde-haired homosexual Russian bimbo.
Yeah, and you're going online and
people
getting out finishes 6 months before they happen and all bullshit.
They should believe, though.
Yeah, they should believe whatever is being put out for dinner. So that's.
Oh yeah, it's like some poor son of a bitch going to church and some guy holding a sign before you go in and says this is all the work,
that's about right.
put your money in the thing and praise the Lord, and then Jim and Tammy are at the back taking donations and shit. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
So now, have there been any rumors that maybe they're going to call you back up to the E?
No, after I left, I kind of cut myself off from that company. I guess you could say never, but I just think that there's one thing right now. There's just, if there was a time for me to go back, it would have been to go back and reteam with Tyson Kidd and reform the Hart Dynasty, but or would be, if timing was better, because there's a lot of good guys in NXT, would have been me doing all my Japan times before and then coming in now. But there's so many guys that just got signed also from TNA, and how their financial situation is in that company, I don't know. I've heard a lot of things, but I lost contact. I don't think that Triple H likes me. I don't think he likes my family, and I don't think Stephanie really does. And I'm not really bothered by that. I like to go around the problem rather than go on it, headbutt it full on. So,
sure.
And it's kind of evident with his whatever it's been going on with Brett saying this about Triple H or him saying this or whatever it is. He just doesn't like me. He doesn't like the Hart family, and that's about.
I think the key, Harry, is if you don't need them, then you're okay. But
yeah, and that's
if you got other options, then they maybe want you. But it's kind of a weird twist.
It just seems like such a big financial loss for their company to take to continue to carry on a personal grudge.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think if Brett came back, then anyone could or can. I guess it's the best way to look at it. But if you do go back, I think you need to go on your terms. The last thing you want to be doing is limping back there and having to kiss somebody's hemorrhoidal sphincter to get back in there and all that bullshit. And,
if TNA was smart,
better in Japan, and my tag team has been awesome with Lance, and anybody that's seen my work over in Japan will, I'm sure, attest to this. But I found that my work in the G1 Climax, especially in the 2014 was really awesome too. But my singles matches in 2013 were really awesome. And I think that if New Japan, I'm sure that they will eventually, but I think that I'll be doing more single stuff, me and Lance Archer both. But it's kind of like Tenzan and Kojima. They go off in the singles and they come back as a tag team later on or whatever. But I think that there's definitely potential for a singles, more like a serious run in Japan. And I'm not really rushed or eager or actually, to be quite frankly, interested to go back to the WWE. And I just don't think it's a good place for me.
I've got a lady calling from England, and I'm going to put her on the air right now. Is that Natalie Wood from England?
Hi.
Hey,
Hello.
Natalie, how are you?
I've got a question for you, Harry. Where would you like to see your career headed in the future, MMA or staying in wrestling?
Well, I would like you to cross over and try and do both. I want to more specifically work on educating the people more about catch submission wrestling and the real art of all the different submissions and the whole catch wrestling style that Billy Robinson, I was lucky enough to have passed on to me. And Josh Barnett's able to do that, more efficiently because he's in the audience's eye, and he's competing in the UFC at a full, on the big stage, which is really awesome. I would like to be able to make my contributions to society with my catch wrestling abilities, not only bettering myself as a catch wrestler, but being able to spread the love and the art of it. And I would like to hopefully continue a lot of good success in Japan next year. Hopefully we'll be able to do make a return or do some shows with New Japan coming up. And pro wrestling, though, has been a lot of fun this year. Lance and I, we've had a lot of success with the tag team titles. But I've been watching some New Japan stuff, and I would like to be doing some more shows again there next year. So
I understand, Harry, you've been over to England and UK on some of the tours. When are you going back there?
I am not exactly sure when I'm going to go back at this point. You know what? If there was an offer to go back, I would love to go back. I heard that recently they're making a new TV show and going to be playing some World of Sport over there again, and some other stuff which I would really like to be a part of and be on those shows as well. The wrestling in the United Kingdom is always awesome. And actually, funny enough, Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask, he kind of started out some of his early bits of his career in England wrestling as Sammy Lee, and he's always asking me when I'm going to go to England and how wrestling is over there and how the Dynamite Kid is doing and et cetera. And Sayama's a really awesome guy, so I hope to be doing more over there. It just hasn't worked schedule-wise in between Japan and just with that right now, but I hope in the very near future. Michael Finney in the United Kingdom, he started this petition to help try and get my dad into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm certain that it's going to happen. When exactly, I don't know. I hope in the near future, but, I'm not exactly sure.
Kind of
but Michael
joke.
Finney's been awesome. Yeah.
I think that Tom and Davey were the best tag teams that ever were in the history of the business, period. And when they were up in Dad's territory, they were so... there's nothing like them. They were like what the Beatles were to rock and roll, and for them not to be in there is, really a travesty. But that's just my opinion, and I think
it almost
it defies.
Speaks volumes. It's about like having the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and not having the Beatles or Elvis in, but having Little Richard and Tiny Tim or some bullshit.
Yeah.
Who's kidding who here?
It's almost a shame that they haven't inducted them because Dynamite Kid, I don't think that he's able to fly anywhere. Maybe if they had done it 5 years ago, he could have, but I don't know if he would have even done it. I'm not sure, but he's in really, really terrible condition, definitely not able to fly, which is too bad that he hasn't been inducted because I'm
concerned
that he's sort of on his last leg. So, and that's a shame, but when I last saw him a couple of years ago, I couldn't even understand him talk, and I don't want to, publicize his bad health or anything, but he was in terrible shape, and he's actually lucky he's in the hands of a hospital right now because of how bad he's doing, because he's had like 3 strokes in the past 3 years. Like so.
Chris Gilman from Tennessee just sent me an email. He says, would you ask Harry about his fan page on Facebook? He's supposed to be one of the hottest wrestling fan pages on the net. Just tell us a little bit how fans can get onto that fan page.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? You can go to officialdbsmithjr.com, and there's a link right on there for my Facebook, and then you can also go on Facebook to official Davey Boy Smith Jr. That's ran by Natalie Wood, who was on the phone earlier. And Natalie's been awesome. She's been coordinating things from the UK and helped set up appearances and stuff for me when I come over. Been a great help. So, you know what, if he can support me on that and he would like to, that would be fantastic. It is, once again, officialdbsmithjr.com, and it's the same for Facebook as well. I was just curious, Bruce, I don't know how much you follow. Do you ever watch, I have the Ring of Honor and Impact on my TV on the Fight Network. Do you ever catch any of that or see any of it online? I'm just
it's funny, I've never, I hate to sound stupid, but I've never ever seen it. I've heard the odd time the name, and I've heard people talk about Ring of Honor, usually my nephew Ted and some of that, but I've heard good and bad things about it. I heard like sometimes it was really good, then I heard that it was getting, kind of more into the bullshit type stuff, so I don't know that much about it, one way or the other, but
is it? What do you think of it? What does Harry think of the Ring of Honor?
I think it's a good product. I think that there's a lot of good stuff. You know what? I think that there's a lot of guys that might go too fast, and by that I mean there's the pacing isn't like it's way a lot for the fans to kind of try and digest. But they got some good guys. I think
they try
hard,
to watch
don't
they?
At least you, as opposed to watching Raw, where you might see a match that's a minute and 30 seconds. At least you'll see more actual wrestling. But
you know what I think, Bruce may agree with me on that. I think the psychology of wrestling, as it used to be in the old school, is missing, and I think that everybody's trying to recreate a generic, prototype of WWE, which is where they missed the boat. That they really need to do is go back to basic wrestling and do some of the, like you're doing. The grappling is what is missing from the wrestling business, hugely missing. But they need to get the psychology back, too.
Yeah, everybody should try and be unique, too. I'm sure Bruce would totally agree with that. Was a lot of times, like in OVW and these developmental territories, guys, like that, why I didn't want to sign, one thing was I didn't want to become like a cookie cutter or a robot.
Yeah, where you pull the string and everybody says the same thing.
Yeah, everybody needs to be kind of unique,
And Ted's a bit like that, but they all want to do nothing but effing high spots. But what they need to realize is the wrestling sets up the high spots. If they did about a quarter as many high spots and 3 times as much wrestling.
Bruce, who was brilliant at doing just that with Tom and Davey? They knew exactly how to execute that.
And they got that because they were in the Wigan gym and all. They it was all wrestling, and that was what made them so great. And Brett learned that too. They and Owen. If and when they did a high spot, it meant something. It was a high spot. If all you're doing is high spots, then you may as well go to the stinking circus or watch some break dancers or some bullshit.
Yeah, and you tried to instill that in them in the dungeon too. And when I think that Harry and Natty and TJ went off to do stuff with New York, they knew more than I think anybody realized. They were doing that kind of stuff before they ever went in there, and they were almost getting that stuff suppressed rather than being allowed to work with it because it was unique.
Oh yeah, it would be like almost like a university graduate having to be sent to do high school
kindergarten,
Street 24 or something. You know what I mean? Like,
it's part of the arrogance of the WWE where they make out like you guys, and they even did that unfortunately with Brett and Jim and Davey and Owen and Pillman and all those guys. Those guys were all great workers long before they ever got to WWE, but I remember Owen and Pillman and Benoit, all those guys telling me that they were treated like they needed to be taught in some bullshit place like Ohio Valley or whatever by some guy like a marginal talent.
Yeah, hone your craft.
Yeah,
you guys already.
It was all, it was total bullshit.
You were born and raised in the wrestling. I mean, it was in your blood, and you never had to. And that's why Natty too has always been an outstanding wrestler. Like she knows more than most people do about wrestling, and she does it very well. But she never had to be taught. And for them to try and suppress her, I think it would get her down. But she finally just does what she does best and doesn't let anybody tell her how to do it. But that's what they want you to be kind of crafted.
Yeah, she's done a really awesome job of doing that in the company. I mean, she's really been resilient at overcoming stuff there because I don't know how she does it because I would have lost my mind there quite a while ago. So
she just loves her.
Kudos
loves
to her
the business.
for sure. Yeah, that's what it that's what it's all about. And
it's a respect
and,
for
like
herself
a lot of this,
too.
Yeah, and a lot of it, like we were kind of talking earlier that a lot of my stuff on WWE wrestling on it, like when me and TJ we went up as a tag team, we had to feud with Crime Time for like a year. And, it's like you wrestle those same guys every single week. Either we win or they win. Just ping pong. And there was no other real tag teams to go against him. Vince at that time actually I think was in more control, and he didn't like tag team division or something. And there was no real other guys,
no incentive either.
To get
then
Jimmy
was there?
Wang Yang. And we just a lot of the stuff I like. Even just watching some of my older stuff from Stampede with wrestling at the Ogden Legion against, some of these guys. And I preferred the matches because I could follow the stories better than some of the stuff that I did when I was in WWE. And it's supposed to be, you're supposed to be having your best performances when you're on TV. But there was just too many limitations. It was a weird vibe. I can't really even describe it. It just was. It was unable. It was basically handcuffed and unable to get ahead and get over. Because
it was almost very like that abortion down in Phoenix with Brett and the 30 Hart kiddies outside the ring spanking Vince, and it was like just a bunch of total bullshit. It made no sense, but we had to kind of go along with whatever. But it was all just kind of hit and miss horse shit, I thought, but I gave them a better finish when they ran the bullshit thing by me before, and I said the whole thing makes no sense where you got 30 people and the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, kicking the shit out of some 65-year-old non-wrestler, and I said the whole thing makes no sense, but I said it would have made more sense maybe to with Harry maybe and Brett doing something, maybe with Hunter and Vince or something like that. And much to my dissatisfaction, Brett was the guy who kind of gave it the thumbs down. I don't know why, but the whole thing kind of, they missed the boat on it. There was no spin-offs or sequels or fuck all, you know, it just kind of, and the match was flat as hell, you know, I even felt like an idiot refereeing it, you know, it was more of a gong show than anything else, you know, but.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the thing is that, like Dynamite and Tiger Mask, they did some amazing stuff in the ring, but I think what a lot of it made, what they did, and you probably agree with me, Bruce, is that they really showed a struggle to a lot of stuff. It wasn't just so smooth. It was in between the struggle where it looked like a competitive
you hit the nail on the head, Harry.
fight, not just a circus show.
That's what it's all about.
And that was what I think is missing from a lot of guys, is that
if you just put Christ on the cross and you didn't have all the other lead up, it wouldn't mean anything, you know. And, you know, I would say that to any of the young guys coming up that are trying to do all the high spots, if you do about 1/10 as much, but do some wrestling to set it up, then you know, it will get over way more. You know, that's the secret of Dynamite or Davey
and
or
a lot of it's all the little things that they did. You know what I mean? They like a lot of the
sell and the comeback and the letting the crowd feel like they're part of it.
Yes, endorsing
it goes from being just a drawing. It's either really fine art, or else it's just a drawing. It's a sketch. They have to take it to the next level and make it the painting instead of just a sketch. And it takes lots of steps in between. You know.
Oh yeah, and I'd even say that was the secret of Daniel Bryan. He got it. All he ever did was sell his ass off and get the people behind him, and they're all going yes, 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 and then he'd finally do the comeback, and the people feel like they actually had something to do with it. And it's a simple formula, but they seem to have lost sight of it, and they need to go back to that,
I was going to mention his name and TJ's as people that were really good with being able to do that, show the inner struggle and the little things like that. But unfortunately, you know what? We were just in different companies at different times, and then when he was coming to WWE, I was sort of on my way out. But he had good timing, man. He came in, and whoever it was, I think it was maybe William Regal, was really behind him, and I think he's friends with Triple H and influenced that. But had Daniel Bryan signed when I signed, or signed before when the Cruiserweight division was totally dead, he probably would have been wasted, honestly, or he wouldn't have had the success. And him and AJ, they had really good timing with when they signed. Because had AJ signed a couple of years earlier, he might have been a regular in NXT and not gone up. I'm not trying to say that that's based on his talent. I'm trying to say based on the pencil and eraser that goes on up there.
How many days a week are you working over there in Japan now, Harry? How does that schedule go over there nowadays?
Yeah, you know what? It all depends. Like you could be there for 2 weeks and you could have shows like almost every single day, and then you could go there for a month and it's more spread out. You know what? And sometimes I go over for just a one big pay-per-view event. So you fly in the day or two before, do the show, and then you fly home. But it's a long way for one thing, but it's the big events. So it all depends on what kind of touring that they have.
And do they actually run a circuit? Like, do you go from town to town to town, or is it all the same venue in a highly populated area?
Oh, no, gosh, no. We do a lot of traveling over there. I mean, we travel on the bus we were on a bus ride. In between ferries and bus ride, it was going to be 23 hours. So I booked on Orbitz and booked a flight from wherever it was up north in Japan to Tokyo. And I mean, it was $200, but I tell you that $200 for a 2-hour flight sure beat being on a bus for 23 hours. Yeah, that was fine. So they travel all over Japan. It's not easy by any means, and anybody that thinks wrestling's fake I would say that they're concussed, and that means that they're just unaware. They don't know what they're talking about.
Do they have many other Americans or any ex-WWE guys, Harry, or mostly?
Yeah, Shelton Benjamin, he was over for a bit, and then he attempted to go back to WWE, and something happened. He had a shoulder injury, and I guess the doctors wouldn't clear him. and he's, it's kind of too bad because I think we're planning on him coming back with. I don't know if they had made like a promo package for him to return or not, but I know that it got announced and stuff on. I think even on the draft, and I you know what? I hope he recovers, and I hope he still has a chance to go back there. I don't know, but that's too bad. And myself, Lance Archer, we're over there. There's not a lot of foreigners going over for Noah. We had some good stuff last year with like foreigners against like Chris Hero and Colt Cabana. We had a good, I think it was December 23rd of last year, and that was a really fun match. It was a really big show, and it was like nice to see that Noah's business picked up good for a big show like that. And in New Japan, they got all kinds of guys coming from Ring of Honor and Mexico and all over the world. So New Japan's got a lot more foreigners going over right now, and there's a lot going on. That's why I was saying I go back there.
I was going to say that they really need to start up, even though no one will do it. But what would be in the best interest of the wrestling business, it would be to have like the NWA starting up again, where you have these legitimate talents that can go to places all across the United States and Canada and really hone their craft. And like when Dad had it, where you were switching, getting Abdullah for a couple of weeks and then getting somebody else, and everything was always fresh all the time. But you have a chance for worldwide talent to be used properly, and then that's like they're missing that so much, and they don't know how to figure that out.
Stampede was as great as it was British and Japanese and Mexicans and Americans, and it was a kind of a melting pot of all those styles, and it really brought out some really awesome wrestling, and that's something that they need to redo. And I sure as hell don't think NXT is the answer. They're almost kind of like the antithesis of that, where they're trying to convert all these guys into this cookie-cutter mold of bullshit. I don't know who's the
it's not fair to the fans either, because you're missing out on some, unbelievable stuff if they're just limiting it to, like they painted themselves in a corner. Then, even if it is the WWE's, brand and everything, they are missing the big picture, which is the preservation of the wrestling business, a legitimate wrestling business.
I don't like to be knocking all these indie promotions, but almost all the ones I've seen, they're all, guys with bad costumes trying to be copies of Vince's stuff and ECW and all that crap, and nobody wants to actually go out and wrestle anymore, and that's what they need to do.
And part of the thing is that a lot of them, they don't want to, and a lot of them are, like I was going to say, unaware. They don't know the basics well enough, and that was one thing that was taught exceptionally well in the basement, was the basics of wrestling and how to, because that's the
it's
foundation.
Funny with the dungeon, Harry.
The foundation,
there was no ropes or anything down there, so you actually had to do mostly wrestling. You couldn't be jumping off the top and going through and hitting each other with chairs. That was one of the secrets of the dungeon, was there was not much there. You had to actually go out and wrestle, and you had everyone watching you, so you actually had to be under scrutiny. But had to take the stiff drop kicks from Kerwin and all that shit.
Yeah, I remember when he was practicing those downstairs in JP. He volunteered to really help Big Special K with the drop kicks. And he ate a couple, and No Sold Them stood up, and then he said, "Okay, Kerr, try this," and he held that soccer ball that was down there, and Kerwin drop kicked it all the way through that window, that plastic window, and it crashed all the way down.
Yeah.
And it went flying out somewhere outside. And
I remember certain guys that needed a kick in the ass, I would have them do the scrimmage with Kerwin, and
like Dave English.
and duck clothesline drop kick. If they didn't expect it, it would be like a mule kicking you, halfway through the wall, and that was always the high spot of the Saturday mornings for me, was duck clothesline drop kick. And Kerwin would damn near kick your head off, and
Oh yeah. Do you remember that Dave English at all?
Yeah. There,
I wonder whatever
was,
became of that misfit.
I don't know. I've often wondered. There was quite a few, kind of oddballs down there. They call the Dukes and the Dave Englishes and the. There was some Japanese guy that always used to show up in skin-tight blue jeans and was chain smoking.
Oh, Shoji.
Something like that.
He had a good little a scuffle with that anaconda on the mat, right? Karen, whatever her name was.
That guy named Lyndon.
Yeah, Lyndon.
Yeah, and it was a strange mix down there. There's a lot of tension
Dave Martin
too.
Fitch.
A lot of a few girls that were Harmony and that religious guy.
Lovitz was good. She and Natty had some good practices together.
Yeah, she
Jamie.
was good.
Yeah, she did very well. I think she was good for Natty to work with. They really helped each other learn quite a bit. They really did get the basics down, which is that foundation is what they got. That's what people don't get. A lot of times they think they've got it because they can talk on a mic, but they don't get the reality of it. And there's so much more to it than that.
There was actually way better talent down there when I think back on it now. There was a lot of guys that could have and should have, maybe like Carnage, Elvis, or Goofy, Adrian Gilmore, and Eddie Mustang, or whatever. There's quite a few guys that could have and should have, but they...
And JP was always very good. He had a passion for the business, for the wrestling.
And Jordan. And,
for the sport.
There was some decent guys down there, way better than I've been at a lot of seminars and stuff in different places, and you just sort of shake your head at some of the incompetence, But
they look like your next door neighbor, but they have the paint on their face, and they don't know their elbow from their asshole. Like they don't know anything. They literally don't, and they think they're doing a pretty good job, but
they usually have a brand new pair of patent leather boots that have never been broken.
Well, you remember when Dad taught Jim how to wrestle, and Jim actually was a very good wrestler, but he was down in the basement every single day with Dad for over a month, just learning how to do amateur wrestling holds. And then Jim wrestled for Dad for 4 years before he even considered himself to be, really in the big leagues. But it took, Jim was probably a great wrestler when he had those matches with Kerry Brown and stuff. But Jim never ever thought that he knew anything until he kind of got, 4 years later after being on the loop and stuff for a long time. But he didn't just go in there and think that he knew it all. There was the fine art of the amateur and the grappling, which was what Harry just won in Las Vegas. But that's what's missing from these guys. No one's got that.
It was the same with Chris Benoit and the same with Pillman and all those Japs, the Liger and them, Kichi Amada. They were all down there for months, just kind of going through.
Owen, remember how Owen would work down in the basement with the Japanese guys, and I mean they did so much stuff that it was and they thrived on it. It was just such a they couldn't get enough of it.
Oh yeah, no high spots.
It fed on itself, which is probably kind of what Harry probably is noticing in Japan, in places like if you're, and that's what TJ was great for too. Like they were really unbelievable wrestlers who couldn't, they wanted to learn more and more and respected each other's, styles and stuff, and they. Oh yeah.
I think that's the operative word, Ellie, is respect, and. Down in the dungeon, it was all about respecting the business, respecting the fans, and respecting each other, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, unfortunately,
No, it's almost like, I hate to say it, the fans have kind of been excluded from the big picture. They don't realize it, but I think that
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to mention also, there was a couple really good matches that happened in Calgary, actually between Ted and myself, that unfortunately the show and the product that Stacey Angel was running was a complete gong show and an abortion. But the two matches that we had, we did a 30-minute draw the first time, and then the second time I can't remember what. We went nearly 30 minutes, but a lot of the wrestling and stuff, we
there's no calling or rehearsing. It's just kind of showing sort of like the Inoki Billy Robinson with where fans are kind of wondering if it's a shoot or not.
And Ted's an awesome actual technical wrestler. If he chose to do about cut back on all the high spots and trying to do moonsaults into the audience and crap like that, just actually stuck to wrestling, he'd be way better, and he wouldn't have as many injuries either.
Sure. I've got a couple of people have asked me if you ever had a chance to work with Eric, a.k.a. Apocalypse, a.k.a. Victor from the Ascension, and maybe...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In touch with him?
Eric was a really awesome talent.
You guys
he
worked
really,
many times out here,
I'm
Harry.
sure Bruce can really attest to this. Eric really came a long way from his first day in the dungeon.
He was always a real nice guy, Eric. One of the, he was always one of the guys that got along with everyone and tried to help.
Yeah, worked hard, didn't he?
Nice guy, and I'm glad he's had some success, and he, as far as I'm concerned, he hasn't been used as anywhere near as well as he could have either, but nice guy, never opens his mouth, never gives anyone any problems or anything.
No.
So, but Harry worked with him many times out here, guys like him and JP and some of those guys, so.
Yeah, we did, we had a couple really awesome matches. Like, so I think we did a 20-minute Broadway once that it seemed like everything was just really clicking that night, and the crowd and the atmosphere, the ambience was really awesome. I have a lot of good memories of doing some tag stuff with me and TJ against him and Dave Swift up here.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that he's finally gotten a break, because for a long time he was hunting and he was trying to get signed by WWE, and they were reluctant to sign him for whatever reason. And
just because he's from Alberta,
and he was persistent, and he got it, and good to see he's having success.
I heard he's still a pretty nice guy. He never got a
it's never gone to his head at all. I know Nat and TJ always loved Eric. He was always. I saw him in Orlando maybe about a year and a half ago, and he was still the same as he always is. And, he always did whatever you wanted him to do. Like when you told him to do something in the back, he would go out there and, do exactly, and he never complained or anything. And he always did a great job of executing it, too.
Yeah, he's a good team player, Eric.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. I was just going to ask, because we were going over some of the stories about the dungeon. I don't know, Bruce, do you ever remember when Smith hit that big giant pheasant and he had it soaking down in the sink downstairs?
Yeah, Jenny screamed when she saw it in the sink.
He was trying to, I can't remember if he was trying to ferment it or have it in some...
I think he was trying to marinate it in some kind of orange.
He was trying to marinate it and have pheasant a la orange or something like that.
I remember that, and
it stunk.
Like so many other things, Smith seemed to best laid plans of mice and men go off in a riot. I'm not sure if it got rancid or what, but
a bunch of the guys they would come in for practice, and there would be that because it was down, and there was a big giant stainless steel sink down there.
As road,
and they were
I
getting
thought
a whiff
he maybe originally got it as roadkill in the first place.
He did. He hit it with Peter. He talks about
Peter
it on
Kelly. They hit
Jericho's
it, but
podcast.
then Smith felt so bad about hitting it that he, after it had deceased, became, and he took it home and put it in the sink. And Jenny was going down there to do laundry, and he had this loud scream, and then Smith had to tell everybody that it was his pheasant. But he cooked it, and George was upstairs, and he was looking for orange segments to decorate around the dish. And Georgia she said, "That's sick, Smith," or something like that. But I think Smith thought it was a good eating dish. I don't think Smith was even trying to be difficult. He just was,
he said it was a really nice feast he had prepared. And then he claims that Georgia threw it to Molly and Punky, and that the little Cocker Spaniels lapped it up.
That's what the dogs had a feast on the asphalt.
Yeah,
the feast of
the proverbial wing and a prayer with Smith.
It was It was just one of those
I just remember
things.
that thing smelled. It reeked, and he cut off the claws and gave them to baby Matthew and Tanya to take to school, like as a souvenir. Or something. I remember
he had honorable intentions when he did it. It was just It was. Didn't want to waste anything.
He just said he didn't want a semi to come.
Yeah, he did. He felt so bad that it got hit.
Squash it.
That's just how Smith was, very,
Yeah, that pheasant.
Yeah, pheasant under glass.
Yeah, pheasant a la king.
Yeah, pheasant a la king. I like that one there. That's good.
Whatever happened to when he was up here? Fumihiro Nikura, that Hirohase's tag team partner.
Oh yeah, he had an aneurysm when he was in the ring. I originally had him as part of the Viet Cong Express, and then we brought. I'm trying to remember what the hell the other guy. We brought another guy in, and he was not nearly as good.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of lazy, and I had Hashimoto and who was wrestling as Hashif Khan up here at that time, and Kichi Yamada, who later became Jushin Liger, but they were all up here at the same time. And,
I met Nikura for he had a Chonko restaurant in Japan, and he was a really nice guy. He spoke pretty good English and seemed pretty healthy, and he told me he had about his problem.
I'd often wondered if he was even still alive, but he's not in bad health.
He's still alive, and he looks healthy. Like he looks like he's still active, but it was kind of too bad that his career kind of came to an end.
Yeah, that was like it was funny enough. Right around that very same time, I had this other British guy who had an aneurysm. He wrestled under the name Garfield Ports.
Yeah.
Gary Ports.
That's weird.
He wrestled up here. Scotty McGee down in Portland, and he had a brain aneurysm.
He was a pretty good worker too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a good friend of Dynamite and Davey, and his father was Jeff Ports, the old British wrestler. And I've often wondered if he's still kicking around. He's
I have no idea.
Back in about 88 or so, And,
just we have exactly 2 minutes for Harry. If you can leave some good, maybe in 2 minutes or less or more, a few words of wisdom to any aspiring young star who's coming up in wrestling.
It's important that you find the right teacher, because you can work hard, but you could be making the same mistakes that become routine, and trying to break those bad habits or mistakes is harder than just learning from the get-go. You need to take the wrestling business seriously, even though it is a work, but you need to treat it as a business. You need to take yourself seriously, treat the business seriously, which I don't think a lot of people do now, unfortunately. And you need to have an open mind, and you have to be trained properly, and that's one thing I can say about, even in mixed martial arts, you don't learn a high, of spinning back kick before you learn the basics of how things work, and the basics will always get you out of trouble, and are this foundation for excelling yourself. And I'll leave the rest for Bruce to also.
Very well spoken, Harry. I just reiterate the same, respect the business and respect the guys in it and respect yourself. And I would tell any of the new guys coming up, dare to be different. Don't try to be a bullshit copy or clone of some pre-existing artificial horse shit that's already out there, which is the biggest mistake these days. Everyone's trying to be a copy of some horse shit in WWE or whatever, but actually dare to be different, and as Harry said, learn the basics before you start trying to do high spots and get a weird haircut and pretend you're trisexual or some shit like that, just actually go out there and learn how to wrestle, and just dare to be different. That's what I've used to tell all the guys down in the dungeon. Don't be the second coming of Hulk Hogan or Brett or whatever. Actually, try to be something different. There's a million Elvis impersonators out there that are all starving and having to work a day job. And
one thing that, Bruce, you probably agree with me too, is a lot of guys really need to learn how to wrestle and work on the fly, and that's based on feel and being spontaneous. Because you might have a whole manuscript and an A to Z and a Chinese to Japanese of a match that's supposed to plan out, but it might not work with a certain audience, and or you need to learn how to take that initiative in changing the way that matches happen on the fly and being spontaneous from that feeling.
I've said it for years that
reaction.
If you're striving to impersonate a wrestler, which is what most of the guys are trying to do, at least learn how to wrestle a bit so you know what you're trying to, imitate, and too many guys don't, they want to do everything but that. They want to get a costume, and they want to have a haircut, and they want to learn how to shake hands with two fingers and bullshit like that.